Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting vivid colors across the cathedral floor. Over 200 guests sat in solemn anticipation, dressed in their finest. Pure white hydrangeas lined the aisle, their delicate fragrance lingering in the air. A string quartet played a gentle classical tune, adding a sacred stillness to the space. Ethan Blake stood at the altar, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, though his hands trembled slightly. At 42, he had once been a celebrated architect, the founder of one of the city's most respected design firms. Now he was about to place the final piece in his perfect life, marrying the woman he had loved for years. "You okay?" his best man whispered, adjusting Ethan's tie. Ethan smiled, never better. But deep down, something pulled at him, quiet but persistent, like a warning dressed as calm. The music shifted, the cue that the bride was arriving. Ethan squared his shoulders and drew a deep breath. But no one entered. The grand doors remained firmly shut. A minute passed, then two. Whispers began rippling through the crowd. Ethan stayed still, his smile gradually hardening. The wedding coordinator rushed down the aisle, disappearing through a side door. 10 more minutes crawled by. The quartet replayed the same piece, uncertain what to do. Then the coordinator returned, holding a cream-colored envelope, her face pale. Ethan opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a single handwritten line in familiar script. "I love you, but I love freedom more. I'm sorry." The world seemed to stop. Sound disappeared. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He simply folded the note, slipped it into his pocket, without a word. Leah Monroe arrived at the cathedral 2 hours before her scheduled shift. She worked part-time at the local library and picked up weekend cleaning jobs at the church to help pay her way through social work school. Today, she was only supposed to come after the wedding, but something, an odd instinct, had nudged her out of bed early. As she stepped off the creaky old bus, Leah was met with a stream of people flooding out of the church's grand entrance. Gowns, suits, and glittering hairpieces swirled in a sea of hushed gasps and murmured disbelief. "What's going on?" she asked a church staffer standing by the columns. "The bride didn't show," he replied, shrugging like he still couldn't believe it. "Left the groom at the altar." Leah stood frozen. She had cleaned up after many weddings, grand events that often led to quiet divorces, but never had she seen a story fall apart this early, this visibly. Instead of gawking, Leah slipped through the side door into the church. The scene inside made her chest tighten. Flower petals scattered across the marble, ceremony programs strewn across pews. The air itself felt still, like joy had been interrupted mid-sentence. She got to work, moving silently, methodically. With a silver tray in hand, she began collecting petals, folding programs, and wiping down surfaces. The rhythm was familiar, grounding, each motion like a small way to restore order. As she neared the altar, Leah froze. There, sitting alone on the stone steps, was the groom, Ethan Blake. He looked like a statue, unmoving in his tuxedo, lost in some unreachable thought. Leah gently set down her tray. Her heart sank. She didn't know this man, but the way he sat, still, heavy, like grief had carved itself into his bones, made her chest ache. Leah started to walk away, not wanting to intrude, but as she turned, the silver tray slipped from her hands and clattered loudly onto the marble floor. She winced and bent down quickly. "I'm sorry, sir," she said softly, not daring to meet his eyes. His voice broke the silence, low and husky, like he hadn't spoken in hours. "It's all right. You didn't do anything wrong." Leah looked up, and their eyes met. His eyes were dry but hollow, like every emotion had been drained. She didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded and resumed her cleaning. But moments later, she heard his voice behind her. "Could I get a glass of water?" "Of course," she replied. When she returned with the cup, he was on his feet, accepting it quietly. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice faint but steady. "Leah Monroe." "Thank you, Leah Monroe," he said slowly, "for not asking if I'm okay." She just smiled. And in that brief moment, there was no awkwardness, only presence, between a man who had just lost everything and a woman who knew how to simply be there. Leah didn't expect to see the man again, but a week later, during Sunday service, while she was wiping down the back pews, he appeared, quiet, alone, sitting in the last row with no one beside him. Ethan Blake. She recognized him instantly, not just his face, but the way he stared at the altar, like he was searching for something he had lost. In the weeks that followed, he kept coming back, not for showy prayers or attention, but for the quiet gatherings, the community events. Each time, he found a reason to be near wherever Leah happened to be working. At first, it was just polite greetings. Then came the small, unexpected questions. "What's your favorite flower?" "Daisies," Leah replied without looking up. "They're honest." He chuckled, soft but real. "I've never thought of flowers as honest or dishonest. Everything has a nature," she said. "Even flowers, even people." That conversation left Ethan standing still long after she had gone. After that, they began speaking more often. While she stacked bulletins, he asked about her classes. While she cleaned the lobby, he brought her a cup of hot tea. Small gestures, never forced. One evening, as Leah was organizing the cookie pantry in the church kitchen, Ethan spoke up suddenly. "I heard you're studying social work. What made you choose that path?" Leah hesitated. "My mother was sick for a long time. The social workers who helped care for her, they didn't just do a job. They did something bigger. They made her feel valued, even as life was slipping away." Ethan was quiet. "I'm sorry about your mother," he said gently. "It was a long time ago," she smiled, "but what they did for her, I've never forgotten." And for the first time, Leah saw something shift in Ethan's eyes. Not emptiness, but attention, understanding, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something new. A few weeks later, while clearing the bulletin board after a small group gathering, Leah received an urgent call from her niece, who had gone into labor earlier than expected. "I don't have a crib or any baby things yet," her niece sobbed. "Don't worry," Leah reassured her. "I'll take care of it." That evening, as Leah sat at her kitchen table, budgeting with a calculator and weary eyes, a knock came at the door. It was Ethan, holding a bag of takeout and wearing his usual warm smile. "Thought you might have skipped dinner," he said, but one glance at her worried face and he asked, "Is everything okay?" Leah explained her niece's situation. "I want to get a crib, but good ones are expensive, and my schedule's packed for the next week." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I could help. Not with money," he added quickly, knowing her pride, "but with my hands." "What do you mean?" "My father taught me woodworking. I still remember. I could build a crib." Leah hesitated, then slowly nodded. 3 days later, her small apartment was filled with the scent of fresh wood and the soft hum of sanding and sawing. Ethan arrived with lumber, blueprints, and a quiet focus. As he worked, Leah sat nearby, sometimes handing him screws, sometimes just watching. "You love this," she said softly on the third day. "Not the skyscrapers, but this, something useful, something made by hand." Ethan looked up, pausing over the crib's side rail. "The back of my dad's bookstore used to be a workshop. I grew up with sawdust in my hair. Why didn't you follow that path?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because building furniture didn't make me successful, not in other people's eyes. But now, I'm starting to wonder whose eyes really matter." The question lingered between them, unanswered but powerful. Building the crib stretched over 3 evenings, each filled with the hum of tools, the scent of fresh wood, and the soft glow of warm light across the wooden floor. Ethan worked with rare concentration. Leah, at first only helping with little things, gradually became an essential part of their makeshift workshop. They didn't talk much. They didn't have to. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was easy. When Ethan cut wood, Leah held the other end. When she measured, he adjusted. Their rhythm unfolded naturally, as if rehearsed by time. One night, as they were sanding the crib's side rails, Ethan murmured, "I don't remember the last time I felt this. Still." Leah gave a quiet smile. "Maybe because no one here expects you to be anything but yourself." Ethan paused, then turned to her. "And who am I to you?" She looked surprised, but didn't shy from his gaze. "You're the man who brought a planer into my living room and still wiped his shoes at the door." They both laughed, gently, genuinely. On the final night, the crib was finished. Beautiful, sturdy, each piece crafted with care. Leia ran her fingers along the smooth wood, her voice soft with emotion. "Thank you. My niece's baby will sleep safely in this. But I think it's more than just a gift." Ethan understood. It wasn't just a crib. It was 3 nights of shared presence, unfiltered, unforced. He stepped back, watching her in the golden light. "You know," he said slowly, "some things can't be drawn in a blueprint." Leia turned, her eyes resting on him longer than before. And in that moment, without a single word more, they both knew. Something was quietly growing between them, not rushed, but real. One soft, golden Saturday afternoon, Ethan asked Leia to come with him to a place he hadn't visited in years. They walked past aging shops and sleepy cafes lining quiet streets until they stopped in front of a red brick building with dusty glass windows and a faded sign that read, "Blake's Books and More." "Your family's bookstore?" Leia asked. Ethan nodded, resting his hand on the rusted lock. "I inherited it after my mother passed, but I never knew what to do with it. Couldn't sell it, but I wasn't ready to open it again until now." Inside, dust floated in sunbeams, slicing through dirty panes. Empty shelves stood quietly along the walls, yet Leia could see what Ethan imagined, a warm, living space full of life and quiet joy. "I want to turn this into a free reading center," Ethan said, eyes lighting up, "for kids after school, for adults who need a quiet place to breathe. And in the back," he led her through a narrow doorway, "is my father's old wood shop. I want to restore it, offer classes, build from scratch again." Leia turned in a slow circle inside the dusty room. "It sounds crazy," she smiled, "but it also sounds beautiful." "You really think so?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with an unexpected vulnerability. "I think this might be the first time you're being exactly who you're meant to be." Ethan looked at her, deeply moved. "This idea, it didn't come from plans or projections. It came from talking with you, from something true, from something kind." Leia didn't answer right away. She just nodded slowly. In a space filled with dust and memory between two people who once had nothing in common, something quietly began to grow. A dream. This time a real one. The bookstore began to come alive. On weekends, Leia helped paint the walls, dust the old shelves, and make notes on books that needed restocking. Ethan repaired every beam, cleaned every corner, like a man slowly mending not just a space, but himself. Even as they worked side by side, a quiet distance lingered between them, not physical, but emotional. Leia knew she had grown fond of Ethan, but inside, fear remained. Fear that she was only a stepping stone in his healing, not the destination. One evening, after they had relabeled the catalog tags together, Ethan set down his pen and asked, barely above a whisper, "Have you ever wondered why I spend so much time here with you?" Leia hesitated. "I've wondered, but I wasn't sure I should ask." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, "When the wedding fell apart, I thought I lost everything, but then I realized what I lost was only illusion. What I found was real. It was you." Leia turned away. "Ethan, I don't want to be the one who helps you heal, only to be left behind once you've moved on." "You're not a bridge," Ethan said, voice steady. "You're the destination." His words silenced her for a long time. "I need time," she said honestly, "to be sure this isn't just the aftershock of something broken." "I'll wait," Ethan replied, "as long as it takes." After that night, Ethan never pressured her, never asked again, but he remained present with late-night tea, with quiet support after Leia's exhausting shifts, with a gaze that never wavered. No promises were needed, because the real things always begin with patience. The bookstore's grand opening arrived under the golden light of an early spring morning. Leah came early, wearing a simple blue dress, her hair tied back, heart fluttering with a mix of nerves and quiet joy. By the time she arrived, a line had already formed outside. A few reporters, some familiar public faces, but also people Leah recognized. Former classmates, hospital staff, members of her church. Ethan hadn't just invited his world, he had invited hers too. Inside, the store glowed with life. Books filled the shelves, the children's corner was bright and welcoming, and in the back, a small wood shop showcased chairs Ethan had built by hand. Leah walked through it all with pride, not just for Ethan, but for what they had built together. At noon, Ethan stepped onto a small wooden platform in the center of the store, smiling as he looked around. "Thank you for being here," he began. "This place was once my parents' dream. Now, I want it to be a dream for the whole community, a place to read, to learn, to rebuild." His eyes found Leah in the crowd. "And a place that helped me find what truly matters: kindness, presence, and love." After the applause, he gently took her hand and whispered, "Can I steal you for a minute?" They climbed the narrow stairs to the quiet apartment above. There, in a room flooded with soft sunlight, Ethan turned to her, eyes tender but clear. "I don't need a big ceremony, no fancy promises. I just want a real life, every day, with you." Leah looked at him, heart pounding. Ethan pulled out a simple ring, a plain gold band, no gems, no flourishes. "Not a proposal," he said softly. "Just letting you know, whenever you're ready, I'll be here." Leah held his hand tight, and in that moment, without another word, they both knew. Something true had already begun. 1 year later, on this very day, they returned to the old cathedral, the place where a dream had once unraveled. Now, it stood quiet. No guests, no music, just light filtering through stained glass, and two people standing hand in hand. Leah wore a simple blue dress. Ethan left his tie at home. They stood in the center aisle, where he was once abandoned, where she once picked up fallen petals. "Strange to be back," Ethan murmured. "But it feels right," Leah replied. "Where things once ended, something new begins." "I once thought I lost everything," Ethan said, voice quiet. "But then I realized, maybe loss is a gift in disguise." He opened his bag and took out a small wooden house carved by his own hands. No paint, not perfect, but every detail made with care. "This is the first home I dreamed of, not a big house, but a place with you in it." Then he handed her a clear glass box. Inside were 1,000 tiny paper cranes, folded from recycled book pages, letters, bills, fragments of everyday life. "Each crane is a day I missed you, a day I didn't give up, a day I believed I was worthy of something real." Leah touched the little house, then touched him. "I don't need any grand promises," she said softly. "Just keep folding and keep staying." They didn't exchange vows, they just held hands and walked out of the church, not chasing magic, but choosing something better. A life that's real, chosen, built, kept, one day at a time, together.